people are finally walking away from the dating app. A lot of people don't want to have much to do with them, and they feel like they're making their dating life worse. Let's speak about this today, giving my perspective and looking at some of the realities around dating apps in the modern world. As we all know, dating apps have been popular now for about, I'd say 10 years, maybe a little bit more. I know they came about a lot earlier than that, but I feel like that's when they really started catching on. And it's funny because in that short decade or so, they've had such an influence on dating, especially for people in my generation, because obviously go back 10 years and we were still kids. We kind of grew up in this internet age where online dating is almost seen as the norm. It's like you're looking for somebody new, you download, let's say Tinder or any of these other dating apps, and, you might, who knows what's going to happen. The trouble with it is, I feel like a lot of people in today's world, men and women, both, are looking at these dating apps and they're seeing the effects that they're having on their dating potential prospects, people who they're actually meeting, and look at the sort of people who are on dating apps and they've had enough of them. Let's speak about that today and give my perspectives and look at a couple of the facts on it. Anyway, dating apps now are, like I say, almost seen as the norm. But in reality, they're not all that. In the sense that when we look at the numbers, and I had a look at this online just a couple of weeks ago, it's something like for every one woman on a dating app, there's something like 10 men. And this is crazy because it shows a few things. Number one, it shows how there is an illusion in marketing. Because if you're a man on these apps, your chances of getting any response is statistically quite low. Because like I say, if you're texting one girl, just going off statistics, 10 other guys are doing the same. And being as these dating apps are, really, to be honest, so shallow, they only show a picture and what you want to orchestrate about your life, you may not win, right? You may not win. And I think that's the trouble with a lot of these dating apps now. A lot of people of all generations are realising that they are just a very, very shallow surface way of meeting people. Like, imagine, even if you go to a club, let's say, even though it's not the best place to meet people at all, when you talk to someone, you chat to a girl or a guy, you can see how tall they are, see how they carry themselves, what their mannerisms are, what their voice is like, what their temperament's like. Dating apps make it very, very hard to do that. And I think everybody realises, no matter which end of the perspective you're on, if you're a man, oftentimes you are kind of baited into, you're sort of baited into buying these like monthly plans, which are extortionately expensive because it's the only chance that you're ever going to get any luck with a lot of these apps for most guys, not for all, but for most. And on the opposite end of the perspective, we've got women who oftentimes are overwhelmed with a lot of messages of quite poor quality, and even out of the guys that they do get on these apps, a lot of the time they are very, very weak candidates who are not looking for long-term relationships. And I feel like the same's true for men. Like, a lot of the people who you'll talk to on dating apps, they're looking for either some validation, temporary, they're looking for some entertainment, or something short-term, if you guys know what I mean. And that's all well and good for people who want that, but a lot of people don't. And a lot of people are now realising that these apps, just by nature of what they are, want you to not get matches. For instance, you go on a dating app, you see that you've had like 50, 60 matches, but they will not pair you up with any of these people. It's hidden behind a paywall, and it's designed that way on purpose. And then people think, hang on a minute, so you're paying for a service, so you already have to pay. That does not facilitate good connections. That does not make it easy to link up with somebody, because that's a big point too, right? When you meet someone in real life, whether it's through more of a natural approach, i.e. someone who you might be in class with or work with or anything like that, there's a little base there, right? There's a little base there. Then from that existing base, you go out and see what happens from there. When you meet somebody in the real world, you've already met them, then you get a connection, then you go out or not. So that's already like 2 steps, 3 steps. When you're on a dating app, you swipe them, you text them for a bit, You meet up, you go out, you build a connection. It's so much more complex. And it's harder, therefore, to find these connections because, like I say, these dating apps only facilitate or only incentivize meeting as many people as possible and not actually building real connections. People don't like them. And especially in the modern world, a lot of people in my generation now, I'm aware of this, are turning their back on this internet isolation, this everything economy, this easy economy. And what I mean by that is, we're losing all of our human connection. And contrary to what the internet and the news would like to make a lot of older people think, not all Gen Z are lazy. Not all Gen Z are unconfident. Not all Gen Z are shy. There are a lot of people, like, I would say me to be fair, who can talk to anybody. I see a girl that I like, easy, go talk to her. If the situation's right, if you've got a good vibe, get a number, some sort of connection, contact, and then maybe go out. Maybe not, but maybe. That is not behind a paywall. You can do that anywhere with anybody. But increasingly, I feel like people are turning towards activity clubs to meet people. And I don't blame people for this at all. Like, for example, maybe you're into fitness and you join a walking club, or a gym club, or a running club, or you're into art and a few things are happening there. Number one, you're enjoying something and you're making social connections anyway. Number two, you're cutting out the internet BS, to be honest, right? And it's much easier. This whole online dating thing is not working for most people. Most guys on it are not, they're not going to get any serious options. And even from the perspective of girls, right, I've seen dating apps of girls, and even looking at them from my perspective as a man, I wouldn't give any of these men chances, and I'll tell you why. You've got like hundreds of messages which are all saying things along the lines of, hey, how are you? Even as me, you will be more incentivized to either go for the ones that look good or go for the ones that have funny lines. These are the only guys that will get a chance because this is how the dating apps make it. It just happens naturally. This is not the case in the real world, because even if you're in a club or an activity group or anything like that, you are not in direct competition for a date with this girl or this guy. There's not 10 other guys trying to talk to her at the same time. Maybe there is in a nightclub, but in most real world situations, that's not what you're going to find. And there's only so many people who will sit there and look at the fact that this is just not working. It's not good for our mental health. It's not good for actually building connections, and think it's worth it. It's like these dating apps only work for the top percentage of guys, and to be fair, the top percentage of girls. I know a lot of pretty mid girls and looks who still get decent likes and but think about this as a fact. How many people, and if you guys have had good social and perhaps romantic connections, how many people do you know in your life that you would look at, whether we're talking friends, loved ones, girlfriend, boyfriend, past or previous, anything like that you look at and say, yeah, they're mids, they're nothing special, they're alright, but you wouldn't go out of your way to approach them. But because you met at work, or at school, or at college, or at university, or in an activity club, you got to know them, you started to like them, and it works out that way. This is how the real world works. The internet world does not facilitate that. It's all about vanity, it's all about hiding everything behind a paywall, and people, for the most part, are done with it. Because there's no one who this works for. If you're your average guy, I don't know, you work in something basic, you don't make much money, you've got no particularly interesting pictures, you look like you're a 5, which is a fairly average guy, right? Why is she going to approach you when the next guy that she scrolls past is going to be some guy who looks like an 8 or a 10, and he's got this, and he's got... It's just common sense. For the women, it's common sense for the men that it's not working out either. It's not working out for anybody. Nobody likes these apps. All they want to do is take your money. Especially if you're a guy, to be fair, they don't care about you. They just, for the men specifically, because of how the ratio works out, they give this illusion that there are lots of girls out there, and in the real world there are. On these apps, there's actually not. So, especially if you're a man, right? If you're a man, wake up to this especially, because your chances are particularly low. You are in the lowest group of being able to make it, especially if you're not really that attractive guy. And a lot of people judge their dating potential based on dating apps, especially in today's world. It's true. Go out into the real world and you will have a lot better luck. And so many guys are realizing this, so many girls are realizing that it's not working out for them too. It's just not worth it.